أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وأنذر به الذين يخافون أن يحشروا إلى ربهم ليس لهم من دونه ولي ولا شفيع لعلهم يتقون. ولا تطرد الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه ما عليك من حسابهم من شيء وما من حسابك عليهم من شيء هم فتكون من الظالمين. وكذلك فتنا بعضهم ببعض ليقولوا أهؤلاء الله عليهم من الله عليهم من بيننا أليس الله بأعلم بالشاكرين. وإذا جاءك الذين يؤمنون بآياتنا فقل سلام عليكم كتب ربكم على نفسه الرحمة أنه من عمل منكم سوءا بجهالة ثم تاب من بعده وأصلح فأنه غفور رحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته واهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين. السلام عليكم. First of all, apologies for the slight delay. I spent about 5 minutes unsuccessfully trying to print off my speech. The printer was out of ink, so now I'll probably have to check it on my phone. So yeah, if I look down, don't worry, I'm not texting. And also, yeah, we had a bit of an issue with the live streams. I think most of the people attending are actually watching online. So anyway, it's great to have you all here, mashallah. And today we are going to speak about a man whose actions are remembered until now 5 times a day all around the world. A man who was the first and the last to give the adhan standing on top of the Kaaba. A man who will be remembered to this day as the only one of the Muslims who were tortured and persecuted by the disbelievers when they were trying to get them to leave Islam. He's the only one who never gave up even one bit. Throughout the whole time, he never gave up even one bit. فعن عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه قال عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه said أول من أظهر إسلامه رسول الله وأبو بكر وبلال ومقداد وصهيب وعمار وأمه. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said the first people to make their Islam public were the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr and Suhaib al-Rumi and Ammar ibn Yasir and his mother and al-Miqdad and Bilal. And he said that as for the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr, they were protected by their tribes, by their clans, because the Prophet ﷺ was from who knows which family was the Prophet from? Which family was the Prophet ﷺ from? Anyone know? I know. Did someone say Banu Hashim? You know? Okay, very good. Well done, Hashim. Yeah, someone said Banu Hashim. That's correct. So Banu Hashim were one of the biggest families in Makkah. So the Prophet was nobody could do anything to him because he's part of that family. And Abu Bakr was protected by his family. As for all the others, they were. It says in the hadith, Ibn Mas'ud says they were taken out into the desert and they were dressed. They were covered in hot metal, in hot iron, and they were left in the hot desert and forced to, and they were told either you die or you turn back, or you leave the religion, or you leave Islam. And Ibn Mas'ud said, every single one of these, there wasn't a single one of them except that they gave in some bit. They gave in a little bit. They gave in to what the disbelievers were trying to force them to say. So they said something. Except for Bilal. Except for Bilal. Bilal, because he says in the narration, Bilal saw himself as worthless, saw his own self as of little value in comparison to giving into something of disbelief. So he thought that if they do kill him, it's a small price to pay for holding on firm to even to say something. He didn't want to even say something. This is what Ibn Mas'ud said about Bilal radiallahu anhu. And I'll just get back my phone. Okay. Yes. So we want to try and understand who actually was Bilal. Where did he come from? So if Bilal was Abyssinian, what was he doing in Arabia? What was he doing in Mecca? So to understand this, we're going to go slightly further back, 10 years back, or maybe even a bit further back than that. So 10 years back is when the Prophet ﷺ was born. So Bilal was 10 years younger. So even a bit more than, we'll go a bit further back. In Yemen actually, there was a king, an Arab king by the name of Dhu Nawas al-Himyari. He was an Arab king, but he converted to Judaism. And he tried to make everyone in Yemen become Jewish as well. So he persecuted anyone who was refusing. And there was one group of people who were actually worshipping Allah alone. They were only worshipping Allah alone and not nobody else. They were praying only to Allah, and he started to burn these people. So can anyone guess where these people came from? Because the Prophet ﷺ, as I said, he was still a few years before he was born, and then of course he only became Prophet at 40. So how were there people in Yemen already who knew about Allah and they were worshipping Allah alone? Any guesses? Yeah? Say it? Ibrahim alayhi salam, that is a good try. But in this case, it was actually followers of the Prophet Isa alayhi salam. So the true followers of the Prophet Isa alayhi salam, they were following the true message of the Prophet Isa. So yes, Saint Paul came along and made the Trinity and so on, and he changed the message of the Prophet Isa, but there were still people. And even to this day, there are people who know that the Prophet Isa didn't actually preach, all these things, and he preached to worship Allah alone. So back then, a few years before the Prophet was born, there were a few people in Yemen who were worshipping Allah alone. So this man called Dhu Nawas, he started to set them on fire. So one of them, so they wanted to get help. So where can they go for help? So they don't believe in the Trinity and all that, but technically they're Christians. So, and they're in Yemen. Is there anywhere, where can they go for help in the whole region? Any ideas? Is there any sort of empire or anything at that time who's Christian? Abyssinia. See, my mom knows. Okay, Abyssinia. Yes. So actually, they went to the Romans first. So they went to the Romans, but they're much further away. And then the Romans, the emperor of Rome said, "No, I'm a bit far away because Yemen is down south and the Byzantine Empire is up north in Asham. So it's too far away." So they actually went to Abyssinia. So the king of Abyssinia became very annoyed at that this man called Dhu Nawas is setting alight all the Christian people. So he sent an army with a man called Ariel. He went to Yemen. He defeated Dhu Nawas and saved these Christian people. Then what happened is his second in command, by the name of Abraha. Has anyone heard of Abraha? We've heard of Abraha, yes? So his second in command. Very good. He basically tried to take over, and he through some deception and treachery and stuff, he killed the other guy who was the main guy in command, and Abraha took over the whole region. So now Abraha is in charge of Yemen. And what did Abraha do? Abraha built a church called Al-Qulais. And Abraha, because he was very jealous of, who was he jealous of? What was he jealous of? He was jealous of the Kaaba because all the Arabs are going to Mecca to do pilgrimage to Mecca. Now hold on. This is before the Prophet ﷺ came, isn't it? So were they still doing the Hajj then? Yeah, were they doing the same Hajj? What was different? So when they would do Hajj, the Kaaba was surrounded by idols. They would do Hajj and the Kaaba would be surrounded by idols. Okay, so anyway, they were doing Hajj then, their version of Hajj. Abraha became very jealous. He built Al-Qulais. The Arab people were very annoyed at him that he's telling us to leave the Kaaba and go and do pilgrimage to his church in Yemen. So one of the Arab people, he was a bit rash, he went and did something in Al-Qulais. Some of you might know, some of you might not know. Abraha became very upset. So basically he made it filthy. Abraha became very annoyed that this Arab guy is doing this. So he sent an army to destroy the Kaaba, right? Abraha went to Mecca with a big army of the Abyssinian people, elephants and everything, went to Mecca to destroy the Kaaba. What happened to him? What happened?
He died.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so Abraha was not successful. Let's just say that. And it comes in the Quran as well, Surah Al-Fil. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Okay. Now what happened is, after this, there was the Abyssinian people. They come from they come all the way. They come all the way from a whole lot of them are coming to Arabia, right? With the army, not just the army, but their families and everyone. So many people have come now. Now that the army got destroyed, whoever was remaining became enslaved. Whoever was remaining was enslaved in Arabia. And of course, as you can imagine, they are going to be very despised people now, aren't they? Because they've come to destroy the Kaaba, and they were, they were stealing and stuff when they were coming in. Now the army's been destroyed, so people and whoever's left, they become slaves, and they're very much hated in Arabia as well. So one of these people who became a slave was a woman called Hamama. And it said that she was an Abyssinian princess. Now whether it's true or not, the narration is a bit weak, but we don't know. But she became a slave, and if it is true, that's what happens in that. Some people they're right on the top and then they become enslaved. Or at least that's what happened in the history. Some people who were slaves became rulers. Who can give an example of slaves who became rulers? Anyone know? Yes, the Mamluks, right? The Mamluks. The last, when the Mongols came to destroy the Islamic world, the last standing Muslim rulership was the Mamluks in Egypt. Cairo was the last standing point. Beyond that, if the Mongols had beaten them, that would have been it. It was almost like that was at the end. It seemed like people thought that was the end of time. People thought this was the day of judgment is coming. We're all going to be destroyed. So the Mamluks, yes, the Mamluks were slaves and then they became rulers. And this is typical of life. Some people are at the bottom, then they go to the top. Some people are at the top, then they fall to the bottom. And Allah says in the Quran, وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. Allah gives to people and He takes away from people. Allah raises people and He brings people down. And it's again to show that Allah is the one who is in charge. We think we're doing something. We think, I've achieved something great. I've got from here to there or something like that. But this is just to show that at the end of the day, who's in charge? Allah is in charge, right? Allah is the one who decides. Allah is the one who without the decree of Allah, nothing can happen. And we might be the smartest person out there, but Allah can bring us right to the bottom whenever He wants, and Allah can raise someone else to the top whenever He wants to. And a poor person could become very rich all of a sudden, and then a rich person could just in one catastrophe just lose everything they got, like with the story of Harun. So at the end of the day, this just reminds us that people have power, people have wealth, people have status, but at the end of the day, the one who has given them all of that is Allah, and Allah is the one who gives to whoever He likes, and He takes away from whoever He likes. Okay, so this woman called Hamama, whether or not she was a princess or she might have just been a common person, she became a slave. And then there was another slave in Arabia. He was an Arabian slave. He wasn't Abyssinian, he was Arabian, but he was darker skinned. called, his name was Rabah. He married this woman called Hamama. And he was a slave of a man in Mecca called Umayyah ibn Khalaf. So when she gave birth to her children, obviously they are also going to become, because that's how it worked. He was a slave, she was a slave. So then when they have children, they'll also become slaves. So this man, Rabah, married Hamama, and Hamama gave birth to Bilal. This woman gave birth to Bilal. So Bilal, of course, as you can see, became a slave of Umayyah ibn Khalaf as well. Okay, let's just check. Okay, yes. So, and again, obviously, the topic of slavery is a very controversial topic. Now, I'm not really going to go into it so much today. There are experts who have done their research, and they've actually, there are some talks out there, you know, from Muslim speakers who've spoken about this. Because the reason why is because it becomes a bit of a controversy, because many people criticize Islam for this. They say, even though of course Islam didn't introduce slavery, people say, why didn't Islam ban slavery right from the start, like it banned other stuff, like it banned alcohol and things like that? Because yes, Islam, we all know Islam encouraged the freeing of slaves very much. Islam encouraged the freeing of slaves all the time, but people say that Islam didn't wipe out slavery straight away. And ironically, many of these people who criticize Islam for this are descendants of those who were instituting a much more severe type of slavery in places like America. Only a few hundred years ago, there were people, I'm sure all of you know, in America, what was happening only a few hundred years ago, after the Renaissance and after all that, in the time when people have gone out of the terrible dark ages and people are enlightened and they're in the modern age. In spite of all that, a few hundred years ago in America, slavery was happening. In places like South Africa, there were things like this happening. And yet, the descendants of these people often turn to Islam and criticize Islam, saying, look what a bad religion Islam is. It didn't wipe out slavery straight from the start. As I said, I'm not really going to go into this much. You know, there are many talks online by many scholars you can watch. They speak about slavery and why, maybe why Islam didn't just straight away say from the start, slavery is finished. So, but as we'll see later, freeing of slaves was a very virtuous act in Islam. We see with many people often say, for example, alcohol. Islam wiped out alcohol. People were drinking and Islam wiped out. But actually, if we look at that in the Quran, it didn't say no straight away. There are many verses in the Quran talking about alcohol. So the first one says, the first one is in Surah Al-Baqarah. It says that in drinking alcohol there is a big sin. And then afterwards we get another one saying that alcohol is one of the biggest, one of the things associated with the shaitan, is one of the worst things. And then afterwards in the Quran there's another verse which says, which basically commands the Muslims to stop. So even that, it was done over time. So perhaps, and Allahu A'lam, perhaps you could say that depending on how ingrained something was in society, Islam sort of took it out gradually. So with alcohol, maybe it wasn't such an established thing. It wasn't such a big part of life that, okay, Islam could, in maybe a few months or a few years or whatever, gradually wipe it out. But with slavery, Islam didn't quite remove it. As I said, have a look online, inshallah. There are many, there's a lot of discussion about this. But what we can say is that, as I said, if people criticize Islam, there were much worse things going on in, even, as I said, a couple of hundred years ago, in, all the Western countries. So that's just something to be aware of. So when the Prophet first came with Islam, who were the first people to accept? Yeah? Abu Bakr? Yeah, Abu Bakr, that's a good point. I was going to speak about Abu Bakr. Yeah, before him? His wife. Who's his wife? Khadija, yes, Khadija. So people like Khadija and Ali and Abu Bakr and so on, they accepted very early. And Abu Bakr didn't just accept, but he also went and started giving da'wah to other people as well. Abu Bakr started calling other people to Islam as well. And there's of course we know how great Abu Bakr is, and it's enough of an indication of how great Abu Bakr is. Abu Bakr was is mentioned in the Quran. Abu Bakr was the second of the two when the Prophet and Abu Bakr were doing the hijrah. Abu Bakr was the companion of the Prophet in the cave. Abu Bakr was, at the end of the Prophet's life, he said, وَلَوْ كُنْتُ مُتَّخِذًا خَلِيلًا لَاتَّخَذْتُ أَبَا بَكْرٍ خَلِيلًا. The Prophet said, if I was to take a Khalil, I would take Abu Bakr as a Khalil. But then the Prophet said that Allah has taken me as a Khalil. So because of that, the Prophet couldn't take any person as a Khalil. What's a Khalil, by the way? What does Khalil mean? So the Prophet said, Allah took me as a Khalil like he took the Prophet Ibrahim as a Khalil. What does that mean? A very close friend. Basically, it's a very close friend. Okay. So anyway, Abu Bakr, he went and started preaching to people. He spoke to people. Many of the greatest companions we know to this day. Abu Bakr was the one who introduced Islam to them. So we know like Uthman ibn Affan, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, Talha, Zubayr, all of them. They were all invited to Islam by Abu Bakr. Now Abu Bakr also went to this man called Umayyah ibn Khalaf's house, and he went to preach to him. But Umayyah was not in. So who did Abu Bakr find there? Abu Bakr found his slave there. His slave called Bilal. Abu Bakr found him there. So Abu Bakr preached to him, and Bilal accepted. And we don't know exactly what order it was, but he must have been one of the very first people to accept, because there's a hadith also that a man came from Makkah from far outside, and he went to the Prophet and he asked him, what he's preaching, what he's calling to. The Prophet told him what he's calling to. He said, so who's accepted? Who's believed in you? So the Prophet said, Hurrun wa 'abd, a free man and a slave. So meaning Abu Bakr and Bilal. So at that point, there were very few people. Abu Bakr and Bilal were one of the only people. So we can see Bilal was one of the very first people to accept. Now Umayyah, when he found out that Bilal had, Umayyah was one of the people who hated Islam, like wholeheartedly, he absolutely hated it. So Umayyah, when Bilal accepted, he was enraged, and he began to torture Bilal. Now what would Umayyah do? Umayyah would take him into the middle of the desert, and Umayyah would put big heavy rocks on him, and he would say to him, you either leave this religion, and you believe in Allah and Al-Uzza. What are Allah and Al-Uzza? Idols, yeah? Idols. So you either leave the religion and believe in that, or you will die. Yes, so this is what they would do to Bilal. And at the same point in time, all the other people, so as I said, all those other people were also being tortured. Ammar, Suhaib, and others. So Suhaib here is Suhaib al-Rumi. Has anyone heard of him? Suhaib al-Rumi, he's a famous companion. So these people, they were all being tortured. And as I said at the beginning, they would say things to them, and eventually people would give in. Eventually people would give in. They would say to disbelieve in the Prophet. You must disbelieve in the Prophet. And eventually people would give in. Now they wouldn't actually. That's because in the Quran it says, "Illa man ukriha wa qalbuhu mutma'innun bil iman." If someone is forced to, they are given consensus. So if their heart is still, if they still believe in their heart, but they say some words against the religion, that's allowed. That's allowed if someone's forced. And now, of course, this doesn't mean here that illa man ukriha. It doesn't. When someone's forced, it doesn't mean something sort of minor. It doesn't mean somebody comes to me and says, this religion called Islam isn't very good. You should leave it. Why do you keep praying? You should stop praying. Leave this. That doesn't mean forced. Forced here is, if we look at what was happening to these people, as I said, they were getting lashed, they were getting whipped, they were getting people putting them in the. Now, has anyone ever been to Arabia or anywhere in Makkah, Medina, anywhere in that part, Syria, Egypt, anywhere? What's the temperature like? Hot, yeah? So imagine in the middle of the day, in the desert, how hot the ground is. In fact, has anyone ever walked barefoot over there? You know what it feels like, right? So if you get put on the earth, and someone puts heavy rocks on you as well, which are also quite hot, that's going to be bordering on unbearable, isn't it? And also with Ammar ibn Yasir, so as I said, illa man ukriha, except the one who's forced. So we can see here what it means. Ammar ibn Yasir, not only was he tortured himself, also he had to witness his own parents being tortured, and and we know what Abu Jahl did to his mother. Abu Jahl, he took a spear and he stabbed his mother in. He stabbed his mother and killed her with the spear. So Ammar ibn Yasir, he was witnessing all of this. So that was, and by the way, what was his mother's name? Sumayya, yes, Sumayya. Sumayya was the first. They said she was the first martyr of Islam. So this is what Ammar ibn Yasir was witnessing, and they were continuously torturing him as well. So eventually, he said something small against the religion, and afterwards he became very upset, and he went to the Prophet ﷺ and he told him. The Prophet ﷺ asked him, how do you find your heart? He said, full of belief. So the Prophet said, فَإِنْ عَادُوا فَعُدْ. So if they do that again, if they torture you again, then that's fine. Say whatever you want again, it's fine, because as long as you're believing. So now imagine now, this was us. Do you guys understand how, when you're in a group, what other people does affects what you do as well, doesn't it? Imagine, for example, we're in the workplace, we're at school, we're at work, whatever it is. We have Muslim friends. Now someone starts praying. Someone finds a place to pray and starts praying during the break. That is going to encourage everyone else to pray, isn't it? All the other Muslim students, they see, okay, he's praying, okay, why don't we also go and pray? Isn't that so? Okay, imagine now, on the other hand, if everyone's praying and then the teachers, for some reason, the teachers all your friends start laughing at you, and the teachers all start telling you, you shouldn't go and pray during the break and stuff, and you should be doing other things. So now there's 5 people. 4 of them give in, they say, okay, yeah, maybe they're right. We'll leave this. We're not going to pray during the break because it's too difficult. The 5th one, what's he going to think? It's going to be more difficult for him now, isn't it? Because all his 4 friends have given up. Is that right? Imagine you're in a group, all your 4 friends have given up. You're the only one left. It's going to be more difficult for you to carry on, isn't it? So Bilal was seeing all around him, everyone else was giving in, and even the people would tell him, you know, all your friends, you know, they gave in. They gave in. They said something against religion. They would say to him, they'll say to him, say Allah Ta'ala, worship, leave the religion and believe in Allah Ta'ala. And Bilal just kept on saying, Ahadun Ahad, Ahadun Ahad. There's one God. And they're trying to say believe in the idols, and he's saying no, there's just one God. And they say that later on he was asked later, why did you specifically keep saying Ahadun Ahad? And Bilal said, I realized after a while that this was something that really annoyed Umayyah. It really annoyed Umayyah ibn Khalaf. So because of that, he kept on saying it. So it's like, because as I said, Umayyah is trying to get him to believe in an idol. So he's saying, no, there's only one God, there's only one God. So, and also they say that Bilal, over time, he kept on becoming stronger and stronger. So rather than becoming weaker and weaker, what they did to him, they were lashing him, they were putting those heavy rocks on him. Sometimes they put them in metal suits of armor, and then they keep them on the ground in the desert. And of course, that means that the metal, it will get very hot, won't it? So that's going to burn you. And then on top of that, after all that, Umayyah, he would give him to the gangsters of the city. We all know, you know, that in every city there are some dodgy people who hang around on the side of the road. Umayyah would give them to him and say, do with him what you like. So they'd be dragging him through the city, they'd be kicking him, they'd be shouting at him, they'd be telling him, say Allah Ta'ala al-Izzah, mention Allah Ta'ala al-Izzah. And every time Bilal would say Ahadun Ahad, and he becomes stronger and stronger. Now, how is this possible? How is this possible that Bilal, rather when all this is happening to him, he's instead of becoming weaker and nearly giving in, he's becoming stronger and stronger. How could this be possible? So later on, someone asked Bilal, "How did you do it? What happened? Like how did you manage?" Everyone gave in. Ammar ibn Yasir gave in, and of course, as we mentioned before, they had reason to, and they were allowed to. Ammar ibn Yasir gave in, Suhaib al-Rumi gave in, everyone gave in. They said even something small. Maybe they just mentioned the idol's name. Bilal didn't even mention the idol's name. He didn't even mention it. He just kept saying Ahadun Ahad. So how did he do it? So Bilal said, I weighed up the sweetness of faith, the sweetness of belief. I weighed it against the punishment that I was feeling, the punishment that I was experiencing, and the faith, my faith triumphed over the punishment, So after that he was patient, because of that he could bear it, because that's how he was thinking. So in spite of all that, he was able to be patient. Even though he's on the point of being killed, he's on the point of dying, but in spite of that, he was being patient, because he knew what he knew what he was standing up for. So no matter how difficult the punishment was, he was able to put up with it. And there's a story actually about Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Who's heard of him? Yes. Who's Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal? What's he known for? So what he's most commonly known for is that he's one of there are four main schools of Islamic legal ruling. He's one of them is his followers. So anyway, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he was being tortured over a particular issue. I'm not going to go into that now, but the caliph himself had locked him up, and he was getting him whipped. So Imam Ahmad, why was that? Because he was standing up for the truth. So there was some point in Islam that the caliph wanted to change. Imam Ahmad was saying, no, this is what Allah says. This is the truth. I'm going to stand up for the truth. And they were all whipping him and trying to get him to give up and say what they wanted to say. But Imam Ahmad was saying, no, he's going to stick to the truth. So when he was about to be taken to be whipped, someone came to him and said to Imam Ahmad, "Ana Abu al-Haytham al-Ayyar al-Lissu al-Tarrar." I am Abu al-Haytham, the robber. I am Abu al-Haytham, the thief. And he said he's a highway robber and he's a drinker and so many different things. So Imam Ahmad's like, okay, so what do you want? So he said, I have been whipped 18,000 times separately. In separate instances, 18,000 times I've been whipped. I've been lashed. Okay? And he said to him, صبرت على السوء في سبيل الشيطان فاصبر أنت يا أحمد في سبيل الرحمن. He said to Imam Ahmad, now why was he whipped? He was whipped because he was drinking, he was whipped because he was stealing, he was whipped because he was a highway robber, he was whipped because of those things. So he said to him, I was patient, I bore the whipping in the path of the devil, because obviously the reason why he's being whipped is for the sake of all these things. So فَاصْبِرْ أَنْتَ يَا أَحْمَدْ فِي سَبِيلِ الرَّحْمَنِ. So you, Ahmad, if I could bear it, if I could be patient for that, then you, Ahmad, be patient in the path of Allah. So that obviously had an effect on Imam Ahmad. So the same, what we can see here is that if someone's standing up for something that is really the truth, then no matter what, sometimes when they really think about it, they have that ability to be patient. They can be patient because no matter how difficult the punishment is, even if it's almost death. So Bilal, so as I said, Bilal never gave in to the point that they were punishing him until he was almost permanently injured or he was going to die. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu came to Umayyah and asked him if he could buy him. Abu Bakr asked if he could buy Bilal. And Umayyah said, and obviously now at this point, Umayyah is about to kill him anyway. Like he's been doing it to him for ages. Umayyah himself was getting more tired. It seems like Bilal is getting stronger and stronger, and Umayyah was getting tired of whipping him. And now he's on the point. It's on the point that it's like he's about to kill him basically. So for this, so obviously if Abu Bakr buys him, it would be good for Umayyah anyway. So Umayyah asked, Abu Bakr asked if he could buy him. So Umayyah said, okay, for 7 uqiyah of gold, so seven measurements of gold. So now that is quite a large amount of money. So what did Abu Bakr do? Abu Bakr went and got it and gave it to him straight away. And Umayyah still at this point, he's still trying to put down Bilal. He's still trying to degrade him. So Umayyah said, for this useless slave, I would have taken 1 uqiyah. I would have taken just 1. If you just give me 1 measurement of gold, I'd have happily taken it. Never mind 7. He asked for 7, he gave him 7. He said, 1 would have been enough for this useless guy. Abu Bakr said, by Allah, even if you'd asked me for 100, I would have given it to you. So that's how much Abu Bakr valued Bilal. And we can see here, Abu Bakr, again, we see Abu Bakr was one of those people who, throughout the early times in Islam, Abu Bakr was going around and freeing all the Muslim people. So as I said before, because Abu Bakr knew the great reward of this, of freeing those people who are oppressed. And all the other Muslims as well who had that ability to, they would free the ones who were weaker. Yeah. So and Abu Bakr's own father was saying to him, because if you free someone, you maybe you'd expect something in return. You'd expect that, okay, I free this guy now. He's young. When he grows up, he's a strong guy. When later on, when I need him, he'll be there to help me. He'll be there to. I free this guy when I need him. He'll be there to protect me. He'll be there to help me. Maybe when he makes money, he'll give me some of that money. But all the people Abu Bakr was freeing, none of them were particularly strong. None of them looked like they'd become wealthy or anything. So everyone thought, what's this guy doing? Why is Abu Bakr doing this? Why he's wasting his money on these people? And Abu Bakr's own father said to him, what are you doing? Why are you? If you're going to free someone who's physically strong. Then when you need help, he'll come and help you. Why are you freeing Bilal and all these people? They're not going to help you at all. And Abu Bakr said that, I'm not doing this for any of that. I'm just doing it purely for the sake of Allah. I'm only doing it because this is what Allah encourages us to do. So, and now later on, the people, because Umayyah, of course, had been a bit, he was still annoyed with Bilal, and all the other people as well were a bit angry. So what they said is, they said Abu Bakr only did this. Abu Bakr only freed him because he's done a favor to Abu Bakr before. Abu Bakr only freed him because in the past Bilal did Abu Bakr a favor, so Abu Bakr said, now I'll return the favor, I'll free him. Not for the sake of Allah or anything. So in the Quran it actually says, الذي يؤتي ماله يتزكى. This is in Surah Al-Layl. الذي يؤتي ماله يتزكى. As for the one who gives in charity, وما لأحد عنده من نعمة تجزى. And he's not returning a favor to anyone. إلا ابتغاء وجه ربه الأعلى. Except he's only doing it seeking the pleasure of Allah. He's only doing it seeking the pleasure of Allah. ولا سوف يرضى. So the Quran came to actually defend Abu Bakr over this point, and the Quran actually makes it clear that Abu Bakr did this purely for the sake of Allah, not for anything else. So now Bilal now became the person who would accompany the Prophet ﷺ. He'd accompany the Prophet ﷺ everywhere. There are 2 people who are known to have, apart from Abu Bakr and Umar, who were of course always with the Prophet, there were 2 other people who were known to always be there with the Prophet, helping the Prophet, serving the Prophet. They were Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who was known as Sahib al-Na'alayn. He was known as the one who would have the 2 sandals. Because when he would carry the Prophet's sandals around whenever he needs, whenever he's going to make wudu or something, he'd be the one who would hold that. And then, of course, Bilal as well. So these 2 were always there with the Prophet, serving the Prophet. And this comes up in a narration that the Prophet Prophet ﷺ was given a long stick. It's called in Arabic. It's called anaza. I'm not sure how we in English, but it was basically a long stick. And it says in the narration that Bilal would walk with the Prophet ﷺ on Salatul Eid. On Salatul Eid, he'd walk with the Prophet and he'd place his long stick right at the front. So Salatul Eid. Now, does anyone know why is he putting a stick in the front where the Prophet is going to stand, or where the Prophet is going to lead prayer? What's the purpose of that? Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's. I think in this case it's because it's a sutra. It's a. You see, so you guys know that whenever you pray, if you're praying in the open, you put something in front of you, won't you? Sometimes. Just to make sure that if someone walks past you wouldn't want that them to walk in front of you while you're praying. And also, there's another narration that on the day of Makkah, on the day of the conquest of Makkah, when the Muslims conquered Makkah, and the Prophet ﷺ went into the Kaaba to pray, and Bilal went in with him. Now, even Abdullah ibn Umar, he's another companion. He loved to always do exactly what the Prophet would do. The Prophet would pray in one way at one time. He'd pray at the same time. The Prophet would do something. He'd do exactly the same thing. So it says in the narration, and this is the important point I want to make, that Ibn Umar, he had to ask. Who did he ask? He had to ask Bilal. He had to ask Bilal. What did the Prophet? How did the Prophet pray when he was in the Kaaba? What did the Prophet do when he was in the Kaaba? So the point here being, when the Prophet went in, who was with him? Bilal was with him. So Bilal was one of the people who accompanied the Prophet all the time. And by the way, on that point, when you're in the Kaaba, which direction do you have to pray in? Each direction, yeah? So does everyone know that? If you ever pray in the Kaaba, you can pray in any direction. But now, when would you get the chance to pray in the Kaaba? Sorry? No, but what if you're inside the Kaaba? What does towards it mean? Anywhere, yeah, anywhere. So, and actually, I guess you guys know that the semicircle is part of the Kaaba, isn't it? So if you do pray in there, technically you can pray in any direction, because there's the Kaaba and then there's the semicircle next to it, which was originally part of the Kaaba. If you pray in there, technically you're allowed to pray in any direction. But of course, if you don't pray towards the box, people will think you're doing something a bit strange, so it's unadvisable. But technically, yes, when you're in the Kaaba, you can pray in any direction. Anyway, that's I don't know why I brought that up. Yeah, I was going to say. Okay, so later on in the Meccan phase, when the people stayed in Mecca, now people started the Prophet was still calling people to worship Allah, to believe in Allah, to join Islam. Now, who's with the Prophet ﷺ, apart from Abu Bakr and all those people? The likes of Bilal, the likes of Suhaib, the likes of Ammar, all these people who are considered very low in society. Everyone thinks they're useless. They're not from a big family. They don't have status. They don't have power. They don't have anything. The people said to the Prophet, if you expect us to come and sit with you, to come and believe in you, you can't expect us great people, to come and sit with you while people like Bilal are also sitting with you. So you first get rid of them, and then we'll come and sit with you. So in the Quran, Allah says in the Quran, so this is what I recited at the beginning, وَلَا تَطْرُدِ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ. This is directly referring to these people, Bilal and Ammar and so on. Allah says, don't get rid of those people who are seeking Allah's pleasure night and day. And then the Quran says at the end, if you do, the Quran says Allah says to the Prophet, if you do get rid of them, like these disbelievers are asking you to do, you will be an oppressor. You will be the one who's oppressing. So the Quran very clearly says, don't get rid of these people. And it clearly shows, it's not, the Quran makes it very clear, it's not about, status or anything like that. And it's, there's one of the famous poets once said, لَعَمْرُكَ مَا الْمَرْءُ إِلَّا بِدِينِهِ فَلَا تَتْرُكْ الطُّقَى وَتَتَّكِلْ عَلَى النَّسَبِ قَدْ رَفَعَ الْإِسْلَامُ سَلْمَانَ فَارِسٍ وَوَضَعَ الشِّرْكُ الشَّقِيَّ أَبَا لَهَبِ. Someone said in one of the famous poets, he said, on it, la'amruka, it means basically on your life. It's like you're swearing by someone's life. People are not except by their deen, by their religion, by how strong their deen is. So it's not about, all these status and stuff. People might be rich, they might be well known, they might be from the best family, but it's not about that. And then he says, so don't leave taqwa and rely on your lineage, or rely on your family, or rely on what your social status is. Because Islam has raised people like Salman al-Farisi. So he was another slave. Salman al-Farisi was another slave. Islam has raised people like Salman al-Farisi and has brought down people and shirk. So Islam has raised people from down. Islam has raised people up like Salman al-Farisi, and shirk, idol worship, has brought down people like Abu Lahab. So that's really it. At the end of the day, we have to realize, even us, we should realize, however smart we are, however intelligent we are, however great our job is, however much money we earn, it's not about that. It's not about that. We might be the president of America or something, but then there could be someone who is, there could be someone who is cleaning toilets somewhere, and he's much better than us. Because it's not about that. It's about the taqwa. It's about how strong people's consciousness of Allah is. So the Quran makes that very clear. Okay. So then the Muslims migrated to Medina, and now we should understand here, because we in the 21st century don't realize how difficult it is to migrate, to move from one place to another. For us, it might be like almost like it's still difficult now, but for us, it's almost like a change of scene. For them, they never did it. It was just never done. You don't move from one place to another. Nobody ever did that. You're born in one place, you stay in one place, you die in one place. You don't move to another place. It's too complicated. So for the Muslims to move from Mecca to Medina, it was very difficult. And on top of that, there was some sort of disease going around. It was something to do with the water. There was some infection in the water sources over there. So it caused a major fever, and so it became very difficult for the Muslims to live there. And Aisha, she narrates that she came into the room where Bilal and Abu Bakr were, and she asked them how they were doing. And Abu Bakr said, كل امرئ مصبح في أهله والموت أدنى من شراك نعله. Abu Bakr said, every person is greeted in the morning by his family, while death is nearer to him than his sandal strap. That's how difficult it was for them. The fever was so bad, the pain was so bad, it was so difficult, they were suffering so much that they all felt almost like they would die. They all felt they were about to die because of how bad it was, how difficult it was, because of the disease that was in Medina. So they went to Aisha, and Bilal, she asked Bilal also. Bilal also said some poetry. He said that how much he wants to be back in Mecca, how much they were missing Mecca, because they've left Mecca now. Everyone wants to go back to Mecca. So she went to the Prophet ﷺ and she told him. So the Prophet made a special dua that Allah moves this disease somewhere else. So the disease went somewhere else, and the Prophet made a dua also. He said, اللهم حبب إلينا المدينة كحبنا مكة أو أشد. Oh Allah, make Mecca more beloved to us. Make Mecca as beloved to us. Sorry, make Medina as beloved to us as Mecca, or more beloved to us. Has anyone ever been to Medina? Has anyone been to Mecca and Medina? What does Medina feel like? Peaceful, yeah. It's Mecca is very special, but in Medina there's almost like this special feeling in Medina, isn't it? So there's a different feeling in Medina. So this is what? This is the answer of the dua of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ made a special dua for Medina, so Allah blessed Medina. So now the Muslims were praying 5 times a day, right? And now they need someone to call the adhan to prayer, don't they? Sorry, I'm skipping things. They need some way of informing people that the salah is going to start, because otherwise how does everyone know? Like, we just pray in the mosque and then someone doesn't know. Do we go and call each person? Okay, come on, go and pray. You go to the other person, we're going to pray now. How do they do it? So they were thinking, okay, maybe a bell maybe a gong. A gong is that it's the big disc that you have like a thing and you hit it with and it makes a big sound. Maybe we use one of these. So one of the companions by the name of Abdullah ibn Zayd, he saw a dream where a man had a bell. So he went to him and he asked him, "Can I borrow this from you? Can I have this from you?" And he said, "What for?" He said, "We'll use it to call people to prayer." So this man, Abdullah ibn Zayd, in his dream, he saw the man with the bell. He went and asked him, "Can I have the bell?" The man said, "Shall I not tell you something that's much better than that? Instead of that, when it's time for the prayer, say, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah," and he taught him the whole adhan. Okay? So this is how the adhan came about, you could say. So this companion, Abdullah ibn Zayd, he went to the Prophet ﷺ and he told him. The Prophet ﷺ said to him, "Go and call Bilal and teach him what you just told me, because Bilal has the best voice. Bilal has the best voice." So he went to Bilal and he told him, and Bilal then went and became the caller. Bilal went and became the caller to prayer. And after this, Umar ibn al-Khattab, when he heard Bilal calling the adhan, he came and he said that I also saw the same dream. But this other companion, Abdullah ibn Zayd, he beat me to it. He beat me to telling the Prophet So now every day it was Bilal who would be the one in the morning and everything. He'd be the one who would wake the Prophet up. He'd be the one who would go to go near the room of the Prophet and he'd say, "As-salatu ya Rasulullah." He'd call him. The Prophet would hear the adhan of Bilal every single day. And it's not just about how great the adhan of Bilal was. It's not just about how nice his voice was, but it's also about how much he believed in the words he's saying. Because Bilal, as we previously saw, Bilal was ready to die for those words. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Now you can't believe in something more than that. You can't. If you're ready to die for something, then that means you have full belief in it. And Bilal was ready to die for that, as we saw in Makkah. So when he's calling out these words, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, he has a good voice, and at the same time he has full belief in this. So it was very, very, very powerful. Bilal's adhan was very powerful. So now Bilal attended all the battles with the Prophet ﷺ, all the expeditions, and one of the most significant of those is, of course, the Battle of Badr. When the Muslims were fighting against the disbelievers. Now Umayyah, who's Umayyah again? Yeah, very good. So Umayyah, he didn't want to go to the battle. Why did he not want to go? Because he remembered that when the Prophet once when the Prophet was praying, the disbelievers they sent one particular guy called Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt. Uqba, they sent him with to take a dead animal and put it on the Prophet's neck while he was praying. And there was nobody there to help him apart from the Prophet's daughter. The Prophet's daughter Fatima, she had to go and pull it off. Otherwise the Prophet was stuck in sujood because they put a heavy dead animal on his neck while he was in sajda. So then after this, the Prophet turned to them and he made a dua against them, and he named specific people. He said he named specific people. He said he asked Allah to deal with Abu Jahl and Uqba, of course, and Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, and he named a few of them. And he named also Umayyah ibn Khalaf. So now there's 7 or 8 people the Prophet specifically named, and he asked Allah, he asked Allah to deal with these people. And the one who narrates this hadith, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, I saw with my own 2 eyes every single one of these people after the Battle of Badr, their dead bodies being dragged and thrown into a well. So the Prophet made a dua against these people specifically, and Ibn Mas'ud said, I myself saw each one of them dead. Now Umayyah, now of course, these people, they although they mocked the Prophet, they knew that this was a serious, they knew that Allah was, they knew that he was speaking the truth, right? So Umayyah, at this point, they're going out to fight the Muslims. Umayyah was scared. Umayyah said, no, Muhammad, he prayed against me. So now if I go, Umayyah was scared. He was too scared because the Prophet had specifically mentioned him. So Umayyah decided not to go. So Abu Jahl went to him, and Abu Jahl tried to convince him. But even Abu Jahl couldn't. Then what happened? Then this same person who was the one who actually physically took the carcass and put it on the Prophet's neck, he went to Umayyah. Uqba, he went to Umayyah, and what did he say? What did he do? Being the shaitan that he was, he went to Umayyah with some women's perfume. And he said to him, take this and go and sit with the women. Because if you're not going to come to the battle, you're basically, that's what he called him. He said, you're basically a woman. So if you're not going to come to the battle, you go and sit with the women. So Umayyah became very upset at this, of course. He got all riled up. And Umayyah decided, no, I'll show him. So Umayyah said, I'm going to go out. So Umayyah did end up at the Battle of Badr, even though he didn't want to be there. He didn't intend to be there. So what happened is, at the end of the battle, of course, the Muslims were victorious. People like Abu Jahl were killed. All of these people, as I mentioned, were killed. Umayyah, when he realized the battle's ending, and anyway, he didn't do much fighting. We all know, Umayyah might have been very good at whipping Bilal when he was a slave, but Umayyah was a coward. Umayyah wasn't much good at fighting. So when the battle ended, when the battle was clearly in the favor of the Muslims, Umayyah was looking for a way out. What's he going to do now? He's going to get killed. So Umayyah shouted out to Abdurrahman ibn Auf. Abdurrahman ibn Auf was one of the famous companions of the Prophet. He was a friend of Umayyah before Islam. And he used to call him, because initially his name was Abdu Amr, which means the slave of Amr, which was an idol. So when he became Muslim, he changed his name to Abdurrahman, the slave of Ar-Rahman, the slave of Allah. And now Umayyah didn't want to call him Abdurrahman because they didn't recognize Ar-Rahman. They said, who is this Ar-Rahman? We don't know. And it says in the Quran, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اسْجُدُوا لِلرَّحْمَنِ قَالُوا وَمَا الرَّحْمَنِ. They didn't recognize Ar-Rahman as a name. Who's this Ar-Rahman? And at the same time, Abdurrahman didn't want to be called Abd Amr because that's shirk, of course. He didn't respond to that. So Umayyah said, okay, I'll call you Abdul Ilah, the slave of the Ilah, the slave of the Lord, whoever that is. So that's what he called him. So now, on the day of Badr, he's shouting out to him, Abdul Amr, save me. So Abdurrahman didn't respond. So then he said, Abdul Ilah. So then he responded. Then he said to him, and Abdurrahman was carrying some spoils of war. He was carrying, there was some suits of armor because the battle's over, right? So now people will take what they can, and that will be their war booty. So Umayyah said to him, forget about all that, I'm much more valuable than that. If you take me as a prisoner of war, my people will pay you millions. My people will pay you millions to get me back, so take me instead. So Abdurrahman took him. Abdurrahman left the suits of armor and he took Umayyah as a prisoner of war. And now when they were walking, they saw somebody wearing an ostrich feather on his suit of armor. And Umayyah said, who's this guy? And then Abdurrahman said, that's Hamza. Hamza is the uncle of the Prophet. And Umayyah said, ذَاكَ الَّذِي فَعَلَ بِنَا الْأَفَاعِيلِ. He's the one who destroyed us today. So Hamza was indeed, one of the greatest fighters. Hamza, Badr was the day of Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet. So anyway, what happened is, now who sees Umayyah? Bilal saw Umayyah. So Bilal, of course, remembers all that happened before. Bilal started shouting, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, ra'sul kufr, la najawtu in najah. Bilal came up to him and said, Umayyah, the head of disbelief, I will not survive if he survives. May I not survive if he survives. So in other words, either I kill him today or I'll die. And Abdurrahman ibn Auf said, no, you can't. He's my prisoner. He's my prisoner, Bilal. Leave him. I've taken him as a captive of war, now you can't kill him. So Bilal doesn't know what to do. He can't kill him. Abdurrahman is there. So what does Bilal do? He goes to the Ansar. There's a group of Ansar there. He goes to the Ansar. And now the Ansar, again, you can see the Ansar were very amazing people because Ansar won with the Muslims in Mecca, right? So they were trying to catch up with, in terms of good deeds. So the Ansar, whenever, they would always love anyone the Prophet would love, and they would hate anyone who harmed the Prophet ﷺ. And they would hate anyone who was against Islam. So for the sake of Allah, no questions asked. If someone is against Islam, they despise him. If someone is for Islam, they would love him. So the Ansar, in fact, it was two young men from the Ansar who killed Abu Jahl, isn't it? they heard about Abu Jahl, they said, oh, I want to kill Abu Jahl, even though they never seen him. And they were asked why. They said, because he's harmed Allah and His Messenger. So because of that, they were the ones who killed Abu Jahl. So anyway, Bilal went to the Ansar and he said, you see that guy over there? He said, that's Umayyah ibn Khalaf Ra'sul Kufr. That's Umayyah ibn Khalaf, the leader of the disbelievers. So what do the Ansar do? There's a big group of them. They go to him with their swords. So now Abdurrahman ibn Auf sees them coming, and now Bilal was one thing. Now there's a big group of them coming. There's nothing he can do against them. He said to Umayyah, let's run. So they tried to run. And now it says about Umayyah, it says, so now the thing is, obviously, running is, how are they going to run? Running, not every person can run. And it says about Umayyah in the books of Sirah, وَكَانَ سَمِينًا. Umayyah was a fat man. So now Umayyah tried to run, but the poor guy, he couldn't run very far. He got maybe a few meters, and then they caught up with him, and they sliced him to pieces. So that was the end of Umayyah. So Umayyah, he did his best. He did his best to get away, but that was it. So that was the end of Umayyah. So Bilal was able to see this, that the person who put him through all of that in Makkah, he was killed. And Abdurrahman ibn Auf used to say, Yarhamullahu Bilal, may Allah have mercy on Bilal. Because of Bilal, I lost both my suits of armor and my captive of war. So Abdurrahman, he lost, he could have made a lot of money there, but he lost all of that. Okay, now there was an incident with Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiallahu anhu, where himself and Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, he's an amazing companion. Abu Dharr al-Ghifari is one of the greatest companions of the Prophet. There was an incident between him and Bilal. They had a disagreement. So Abu Dharr said to Bilal, Yabna Sawda, O son of a black woman. Abu Dharr al-Ghifari said, O son of a black woman. And now, when the Prophet ﷺ heard about this, as soon as the Prophet ﷺ heard about this, he became so angry that his face changed. And he immediately summoned Abu Dharr. And when Abu Dharr came in, while he was coming in itself, the Prophet ﷺ was almost shouting at him and he was saying, did you really say that? Did you actually say that? And then the Prophet ﷺ said, in you there's still some jahiliyyah, there's still some of pre-Islam in you, that you would say a thing like that. And Abu Dharr became very upset. Abu Dharr began to cry, and Abu Dharr asked the Prophet, ask Allah to forgive me. And then Abu Dharr went to Bilal, and in front of Bilal, Abu Dharr put his head on the ground, and he said to Bilal to step on my head, almost like because he said to him, son of a black woman. So now Abu Dharr is trying to almost he asked Bilal, step on my head now, to show that he didn't actually as a way of asking for forgiveness. And Bilal said, I'm not going to step on a head, on a face that I would never step on a face that prostrated him once to Allah. So Bilal forgave him, and then they embraced and they became, he forgave him. Now, of course, Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiallahu anhu was actually one of the greatest companions, but clearly he made a small mistake there, which was because it was very common at that time. Everyone was like that. Everyone who wasn't Muslim was like that, no matter where. Even in the most civilized places, you go to the Roman Empire, you go to the Persian Empire, you go to anywhere, they were all very racist. So Abu Dharr did make one mistake there, but as you can see, the important thing there is the Prophet ﷺ became very angry with that. And afterwards, Abu Dharr also repented. Okay, hold on. We might just go on for about 5 more minutes and then we'll end. Okay. Yeah, so once the Prophet and the Muslims, they were traveling, and they were very tired. They'd been marching non-stop for days, and they hadn't had sleep for ages. So in the evening, when they were all about to sleep, the Prophet ﷺ said, who will wake us up for Fajr? So Bilal volunteered to wake them for Fajr. Now, Bilal, he stood up for a while, he was praying for a while, and then what happened? Sleep got the better of him, his exhaustion got the better of him, and he dozed off. So in the morning, the first person, when the sun rose, the first person to wake up was the Prophet ﷺ, and he immediately went to Bilal and he said, you know what happened? You didn't wake us up. And Bilal said, the same thing that caused you to fall asleep caused me to fall asleep as well. It's a bit cold in here, isn't it?
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, so the Prophet ﷺ said, we need to make it up, and the Prophet ﷺ told them, let's move to another area. So they missed the salah over there. He said, let's move somewhere else, because this is an area that the shaitan has got the better of us in. So this is not a good area. Let's move somewhere else. So clearly that shows also that the Prophet ﷺ wasn't, it said this is the only time ever in his whole life he missed a prayer. It's the only time ever in his whole life he missed a prayer. Clearly he wasn't missing a prayers. Quite often, because if he did the same thing then, he'd have to, the Prophet, like he would have had to move around. He'd have had to keep on moving to different areas, and maybe if clearly he didn't miss any prayers at home, otherwise might have to move like that. So the Prophet didn't miss it. He barely missed any in his whole life. In his whole life, it said this is the only one that he missed. So they moved to a different area and they made it up. Okay. At the conquest of Mecca, how long have we got? At the conquest of, have you ordered pizza?
Yeah.
You did, okay. Okay. 8 o'clock? Okay, good. Okay. At the conquest of Mecca, when the Muslims returned, so now, after all that, after all the torture, after all the suffering, after being driven out of Mecca, the disbelievers, they drove them all out of Mecca. They made them go somewhere else. Then after all that, coming to attack them as well, coming to try and wipe Islam off the face of the earth. Now the Muslims are returning to Mecca with a 10,000 strong army, and of course, the Prophet forgave almost everyone in spite of that. And one of the most iconic moments here, so now they went to Mecca, they went into the Haram, and they destroyed all the idols. One of the most iconic moments here is when Bilal gave the adhan on top of the Kaaba. Bilal giving the adhan on top of the Kaaba. This was a very great moment, because this was almost, for one thing, this is iconic because Bilal, the one who was suffering in Mecca, the one who was suffering in the desert in Mecca, on the ground in Mecca, he was being tortured and he was saying, Ahadun Ahad, Ahadun Ahad. He was testifying the oneness of Allah. Now, he gets to do it on top of the Kaaba. And as part of the returning Muslims. And also, of course, they were all very, as I said, to them, the people in Mecca, Bilal was lower than, they considered these people were lower than animals. The high stage of people in Mecca, they considered the people like Bilal lower than, they considered them worse than animals. They didn't even consider them like human beings. So now for them to see Bilal on top of the Kaaba, this was too much for them. All the comments started coming in. So one of the people, Attab ibn Asid, he was one of those people. He just accepted Islam because when the conquest came, people either accepted Islam or they were given time to, or something like that. So he actually said, okay, I accepted. And later on, he was actually the one who was made the governor of Mecca, because the Prophet went back to Medina. This man was made the governor of Mecca. But right now, he just accepted Islam. What did he say? He said, he basically said, thank God, Alhamdulillah, thank God, my father died before having to see this. Thank God my father isn't still alive here today to see this. To see this terrible sight. This guy standing on top of the Kaaba giving adhan. Thank God my father's already dead and he didn't have to see this. Someone else said, I can't bear to see this black crow standing on top of the Kaaba. So you can see again how the kind of comments they were making. And then someone said to Abu Sufyan, who again he'd also just become Muslim. Abu Sufyan wasn't yet so strong in his belief. He'd just become Muslim. Someone said to him, couldn't Muhammad have picked someone else besides this guy? Abu Sufyan said, I'm not going to say anything because I'm scared that if I say anything, a rock will tell Muhammad what I said. So I'm not going to say anything. Otherwise, Abu Sufyan clearly he also didn't wasn't a big fan of this. None of them liked it. So they were all they all hated this. And now again, you know, Bilal giving adhan. The adhan is something which is very special. And the Prophet ﷺ had not just Bilal, he had some others who would give the adhan as well. Does anyone know the name of anyone else who used to give the adhan to the Prophet? Has anyone heard of Ibn Maktoum? Abdullah ibn Maktoum. So he was a blind man, but at the same time, and he's actually referenced in the Quran, in the Quran in Surah Abasa wa Tawalla. People know this surah? It's in the 30th juz. Ibn Maktoum, he used to give the adhan to the Prophet. He was a blind man, but again, he was an amazing companion. He was very capable. When the Prophet used to leave Medina, he would often leave this man, Ibn Maktoum, even though he was blind, he would leave him in charge of Medina. So he also used to give the adhan to the Prophet, and there were a few others as well. And we know that adhan is very great because the Prophet ﷺ once said that, he said to a person who was a shepherd, he said to him, even when you're just standing, even when you're out in the open and just with your sheep, if you're going to pray, give the adhan first. Call the adhan and then pray. So don't just start praying. Okay, now after the adhan, Bilal, after the Prophet passed away, again, this is a very sad event for all the companions. They lived with the Prophet ﷺ, throughout all of this, and now the Prophet ﷺ passed away. This was a very sad event for all of them. Bilal tried to give the adhan, but when he got to Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, he couldn't finish it. So after that, he didn't give the adhan anymore in Medina. And then Bilal requested from Abu Bakr that he go to Asham. What is Asham? Syria, yeah. Syria, Lebanon, yes, Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, and Jordan today, yeah. So, and who were the Muslims fighting in Asham? Any ideas?
Romans?
Yeah, the Romans. The Romans were in Asham, yeah? The Romans were up north, the Persians were on the other side, in Iraq and so on. So Bilal asked Abu Bakr if he could join the fight in Asham. Because Abu Bakr was the caliph, of course. Abu Bakr was the one appointed after the Prophet ﷺ passed away to be the leader of the community. So Abu Bakr initially didn't want him to go because Abu Bakr loved Bilal very much. But Bilal said, if you free me for the sake of Allah, then let me go. But if you freed me for some other reason, then keep me here. So Abu Bakr, of course, did free Bilal for the sake of Allah, right, all the way back then. So Abu Bakr let him go. So Bilal went to Asham. Now, during the time of Umar, radiallahu anhu, Umar was also a caliph. During that time, Umar visited Asham and he asked Bilal to give the adhan. So Bilal did give the adhan while he was in Asham, and it was a very emotional time for the people because it took them back to the days with the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet was there, Bilal was the one who gave the adhan for him. So this reminded them of that. Okay. So Bilal, radiallahu anhu, passed away in Asham, in Damascus, it said between the 20th and the 22nd year of the Hijrah, which was due to the Ta'un Amwas, the plague of Amwas. It was a plague which killed over 20,000 people. So now maybe this is slightly, I've spoken about this in the past, so obviously I'm not going to go into it so much now, but this is a bit relevant for us today because of what's happening now. There was a plague during that time, during the time of the Khilafah of Umar, radiallahu anhu, and it killed over 20,000 people, including some of the greatest of the companions, the likes of Abu Ubaidah, he's one of the greatest companions, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, and now we can see here Bilal as well. So all these great companions, this plague, it killed all of them. And it said that after all the wars that the Muslims had fought, Badr, Uhud, Khandaq, then afterwards the battles against those people who apostated, then the battles against the Persian Empire. They've wiped out the Persian Empire now. The Persian Empire was one of the greatest empires at the time. The Muslims fought against the Persian Empire and the Persian Empire was finished. After all that battle, the battle with the Romans, the battle with all these people, after all of that, the number of people who died in every single battle put together, combined, was less than the number of people who died in this one plague. So really, at the end of the day, it shows that everything is in Allah's hands. Everything is in the hands of Allah. Allah decides when He's going to take someone's life. Allah decides when something's going to happen. It's all in the hands of Allah. We don't dictate things. We don't decide when something's going to happen. We don't decide when COVID is going to happen. Allah is the one who decides. Allah is so in these situations we just put our trust in Allah and we do our best. And from that time, some of the things that the companions did was they did try to contain the spread. And it's based on one narration that the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا سَمِعْتُمُ الطَّاعُونَ بِأَرْضٍ فَلَا تَدْخُلُوهَا. If you hear of the plague in a city, if you hear of the plague in a city, do not enter. وَإِذَا وَقَعَ بِأَرْضٍ وَأَنْتُمْ بِهَا فَلَا تَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا. And if it happens in a city and you are in the city, don't leave the city. Why not? Why would you leave the city? Yeah? Exactly. If you're in the city and the plague happens, you go somewhere else, you could take it somewhere else. So again, there are lessons there for us to learn as well, that the companions didn't just say we put our trust in Allah where Allah will save us. The companions actually took all these steps to try and limit the spread. So today for us, with what's happening now, we should also take lessons from that. We should do our best to stop, not to be those people who actually spread this thing. So anyway, Bilal, when he was passing away, he said, so his wife was saying, wa huzna. She was saying, how sad this is. So Bilal said, bal wa farha. How happy this is. How happy this occasion is, because غدا نلقى الأحبة محمدا وحزبه. Tomorrow we'll meet the beloved ones, Muhammad and his companions. So of course you can see how much Bilal missed the Prophet ﷺ, that now at this point when he's about to pass away, he's happy that okay, he's going to meet the Prophet ﷺ. And again, it shows that if someone lives a righteous life, someone who lives their life sinning, when they're passing away, that's it. They don't want to die. They want to stay here. They're very upset. Now, if someone lives a righteous life, only worshipping Allah, obeying Allah, not avoiding sin, then on the day that they die, that gives them a better chance of having a good death, isn't it? And then they wouldn't be so. They would have a sense of. They wouldn't be so remorseful at that point. So anyway, so Bilal then passed away, and he was buried after the 20th year of the Hijrah. He was buried in Damascus. Now, just very quickly, there are 2 points here that Bilal did narrate a few hadith. He said he narrated 44 hadith. He was 4 of them are in the Sahihain. What are the Sahihain? Now, Bukhari and Muslim, yes. So the most authentic books of hadith. Bilal narrated some which are in those books. One of the hadith that Bilal narrated was the Prophet ﷺ said, "Asbihu bis-subhi fa innahu a'zamu lil-ajr." Wake up early in the morning. So early in the morning after you pray Fajr, you stay up after that because there's more reward then. There's more blessing then. So again, something for us to learn from. Don't have your sort of daily routine as 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. or something. No, sorry, 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. or something like that. Rather, much better is maybe 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. whatever until after Isha. After Isha, there's no reason to stay. Well, now, obviously now in the winter, Isha is at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, so we're not going to go to bed that early. But at least don't stay up too long afterwards, and wake up early. So after Fajr, stay up. And of course, especially now when Fajr is so late, we should definitely do this. Maybe in the summer when it's at 3 o'clock, it's a bit difficult to stay up after Fajr, but at least as early as possible. The earlier the better, as we can see from this hadith. There's more barakah in the earlier hours. Very final hadith, and then we will stop. The Prophet ﷺ once said to Bilal, he asked Bilal, inform me of the أخبرني بأرجى عمل عملته. Inform me of the deed you have done which you are most hopeful from, which you have the most hope out of. You hope for the most from this deed. So Bilal said to the Prophet, and why? Because the Prophet said, I was in Jannah and I heard your footsteps in Jannah. The Prophet said, I was in Jannah and I heard your footsteps in Jannah. So now the Prophet's asking, so he was in Jannah. What did he do to get there? Because now the Prophet. So you can see as well, Bilal was actually promised Jannah, wasn't he? So the Prophet said, what did you do? So Bilal said, I never make wudu except that after making wudu, I pray 2 rak'ahs, sunnah. And also he said that I never break my wudu except that I make wudu again. So basically he always had wudu. So because of that, this action, the Prophet said Bilal he said he heard him in Jannah. He heard Bilal's footsteps in Jannah. Okay. And that pretty much brings us to the end. Does anyone have any questions? Apologies, we went on a bit longer than actually went on about an hour. If that's all right. Does anyone have questions? Normally there are a lot of questions online. If the people online are still there. Oh, so it's a bit behind, isn't it? So.
Boys, no questions. Girls, Asya, do you have a question? If Hajar was there, she would have a question.
Exactly.
Who was Bilal married to?
Oh, that's a good question. Who was Bilal married to? Bilal married the sister of Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, the companion I mentioned before. Bilal married his sister. Bilal didn't have any children though, but he did get married. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, anything else? Do you have any online? Yes? How did he meet him? Oh, you mean in when he became Muslim, or?
How did he meet him?
Good question. So Abu Bakr. Okay, so the question is how did Bilal meet the Prophet ﷺ? The narration says that Abu Bakr was the one who went to speak to Umayyah, and Umayyah wasn't in, so Abu Bakr instead spoke to Bilal, and Bilal accepted, so Abu Bakr took him to see the Prophet ﷺ. Good question. Yes?
How old was Bilal?
That's a good question. So Bilal was 10 years younger than the Prophet. So that means that when the Prophet passed away, he was 63. So that means Bilal would have been 53. And then Bilal passed away in the Prophet passed away in the 10th year of the Hijrah, and Bilal passed away in the 21st, so that's 11 years afterwards. So he'd have been 53 then, so I'd say about 64. Yeah? Something like that. Okay, good question though.
Basically, there's a question here. If Sayyidina Bilal's father was Arab, why was he known as Al-Habashi? Since tribal and ethnic lineage would come from the father.
That's a very good question. Yes. So somebody's asking, if his father was an Arab, why was he known as Bilal al-Habashi? If his father was an Arab, why isn't he known as Bilal al-Arabi or something like that? Because normally the lineage is taken from the father's side. That's a good question. The reason here is that his mother, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's a story that his mother was actually an Abyssinian princess before she became enslaved. So because of that, they say that his mother was a very significant person. So in this case, much more significant than her father, whom nobody had heard of. At least his mother, she had some sort of significance. So because of that, even though he's known as Bilal ibn Rabah, they associate him with his mother. And actually, if we look in the books of Sirah and stuff, because yes, you're right, his lineage is based on the father. So we call him Bilal ibn Rabah, but actually, the people of Makkah, they would always say to him, Yabna Hamama. They'd say to him, O son of Hamama. Now who's Hamama? It's his mother, isn't it? So that's very rare. Usually people say, they say according to the father. So they used to refer to him by his mother. So yeah, it's unusual, but I guess because his mother was quite significant. Good question though. Anything else?
Is it a sort of questions or also discussion by direction?
Discussion, feel free. Bismillah.
So I'm going to raise a question to our friends here.
Go for it.
What are the take-home messages? Is this inspiring for anyone? Is it inspiring? For me, it is.
MashaAllah. That makes it worthwhile.
Who believes that this is an inspiring personality? Raise your hand, please. Okay. And everyone has to give a reason now. So why? Why? Well, for me, I believe that he's very, very inspiring because when a person in our times, not only in the times of Islam, when one believes in one thing, he can make sacrifices, he can stand strong for his beliefs and don't get shy or ashamed or weakened by the others, if that makes sense. So if this person has supported all this, and being in the desert, and I was just trying to imagine when you were speaking, and I have been to the desert, and I understand very well how hot the temperature is, with a lot of rocks on his abdomen, and at the end, the only one who said, Ahadun Ahad. And this is why, because he believes. And if we think about these people, they didn't have PhDs, they didn't have bachelors or masters, they just believed in Muhammad ﷺ and in the message that he brought to them, which is now we are all universities here, PhDs here, and we need to believe more and more, and we need to stand for our beliefs. This is why he is inspiring for me.
Definitely, yes.
Okay, let's start with your family. Now,
now you face let's please me. Do you think he's inspiring? Why?
For the same reason.
Okay. By the way, yeah. You know when people ask questions here, they can't hear it online, can they?
They can hear.
Okay.
But we could just mention what was discussed here.
Yes. So what were you saying? You were saying that
brother was asking, what was inspiring about the talk about each and every person.
Yes.
So can you say that, please?
Okay. Now you're examining me. What? I think I might have just missed it. Yes, you said something about PhDs. You said that. You said nowadays where we all.
I mean, the thing.
It was a very good point.
Thank you very much. But I think yes, there are a lot of take-home messages from what you said. It's not only listening to the story. The story is full of take-home messages, and it's not for the 1,400 years ago. It's for now, and we have to learn from these people and take on a lot of messages from what you said. This is my belief.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, that's a good point. Even though it's happened so long ago, there are many messages for us to take home ourselves and for us to apply in our own daily lives. Even though we are now living over 1,000 years later, we can still apply some of this to our own lives. Yes, definitely. That's a very good point.
There's another question. Are there multiple narrations about how Sayyidina Bilal became Muslim? The sister or the brother says, I have studied that he and the Bilal Prophet would interact close to the mountains, and Bilal would take out the animal to graze. and it is through this interaction that he became Muslim.
I haven't come across that myself personally. Yeah, so someone asked that are there multiple narrations for how Bilal became Muslim? Because they've read that the Prophet ﷺ used to meet with Bilal near the mountains whenever Bilal would take out his flock of whatever animals was, flock of sheep. So the Prophet ﷺ would meet with Bilal near the mountains, and then he'd speak with him over there. And after that, he became Muslim. Personally, I haven't come across that myself, but there could well be a narration like that. Even then, it could be, there's always a way to sort of combine narrations also. So if there's a narration that Abu Bakr said something, maybe it could be that, okay, Abu Bakr mentioned something to him, and then afterwards, Bilal used to see the Prophet near the mountains. Maybe it could be the other way around. Also, I do know that there was another companion who I mentioned in the same thing, Ibn Mas'ud, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. The Prophet used to meet him a lot when he was going out with his flock of sheep. And through that, Ibn Mas'ud accepted Islam. So it could be that the narration they read was actually about Ibn Mas'ud. It might have been about Bilal, I don't know. Anything else?
Anything else?
I don't know where I've read it, or might be making it up. I've read somewhere that Bilal had a stammer unless he read the song. Is that correct? Or he had some kind of speech impediment.
Stammering until he started saying the
Again, personally, I haven't come across this myself. As I said, I think after the Prophet passed away, he sort of, when he tried to give the azan afterwards, he couldn't do it. He just felt that he couldn't say it. I'm not sure if that could be what you're going to, but what you mentioned, I haven't come across it myself personally, but I don't know, it could be true. Anything else? Because I'm just trying to get quiz time, yeah? So whoever's online, we have a Kahoot for you. So if you're on site and you win the quiz, you get a slice of cake for winning the quiz. If you're online and you win the Kahoot, you get the sort of special sense of satisfaction that you won. So, to be fair though, online is multiple choice. In here, there's not going to be any multiple choice. You guys have to actually speak up. So, by the way, for everyone who's new and doesn't yet know how this works, what we usually do is we do brothers versus sisters, and whichever side wins, they get the cake, so they share it between them. And now, brothers, you see this cake over here? Yeah, usually, obviously, my mom's cakes are a lot better than this, but then beggars can't be choosers. You see this cake over here? I really want to try this, so I'm counting on you guys. I don't want to go into that side again because I've lost count of how many times the ladies side won. So anyway, hope you're all ready. For online, yeah, let's get the online thing ready first. Okay. Start in our quiz. Okay. For online, can I send it to you, and then? Okay, so we have online. Okay, I just sent you.
Do you need to pick up?
I sent you the thing. So if you just Yeah, okay, fine.